Welcome back, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Corvette Ed's Garage. Now, I know it's been a while, but I've been working on my precious Corvette here. In this episode, what we're going to cover is we're going to install some gauges, necessary gauges needed to run the supercharger, to monitor the supercharger, to tune the supercharger, all the above. Okay, we're going to go step by step with the installation, running the wiring, running the sensors, and finally installing the gauges and firing them up for the first time. So you get to come along with me on that. Anyway, a lot of material we got to cover, so we'll go ahead and roll it right after the intro. Roll it.
Let's go!
So the first thing's up here, it's going to be a boost gauge, and actually this is a boost and pressure gauge. This is two gauges in one. I didn't really have the room for a triple pillar gauge pod, so I opted to go with the dual pillar gauge pod, which cuts down on the amount of gauges I have to look at. Anyway, the kit came with a fuel pressure sensor that I will be installing on the fuel rail. And the way I'm going to do that is I also picked up an adapter for the sensor that actually screws into the Schrader valve on the fuel rail. So that's how that's going to work. Of course, the sensor is electronic, as well as the boost sensor. However, the boost sensor is also activated by vacuum, and in this case it's boost pressure vacuum. Gotta love the 21st century. But it's also electronic, so everything will be plugging into the gauges. So I'm going to have to run that inside the cab of the Corvette, and it's pretty sad. There's nothing on that firewall where I can slide that wiring through, so I'm going to have to drill a hole. I hate to do that because with my eyes, I'm not that great anymore like I used to be, so I just hope it works out. Anyway, once I drill the hole, I'll be running the wiring from the fuel pressure sensor and the boost pressure sensor, and then we'll be running the wiring straight into the gauges. You can see GlowShift provides you with a complete kit, and it all looks like it's all quality product, so I'm pretty content with that. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. The next order of business is to remove the driver's seat out of their Corvette. You know, the Corvette is a compact car inside that cab.
Ken, you don't shit in the car.
And it's just a lot easier to do things when the seat is removed. And there's really only 4 bolts that hold that seat together. And once the 4 bolt is removed, we can go ahead and pull that seat out of there. That just opens up a lot more working area for me. And yes, I have to manhandle that some bitch out of there, but they didn't make Corvettes for big guys, so it is what it is. So I went ahead and installed the adapter on the Schrader valve, and this is where I ran into a problem. There's no way I can get that elbow, 90-degree elbow on there without having to lift the plenum off. So I'm going to have to loosen the bolts off of that and lift it up in order to get that elbow in there. So as you can see, there is just limited room underneath there. If you're wondering what a Schrader valve is, here's one right in front of you. And basically, the core valve there has to be removed when installing that adapter, because you want it to be free flowing. And the purpose of the Schrader valve is allows you to hook up your fuel pressure gauge to it. That way you can set your fuel pressure. Now, back in the old days, we used to put a fuel gauge right on the Schrader valve. We're running hot rods, but being that this is a supercharger, it's real crucial that you have that fuel gauge inside the cab, because you got to know what the fuel is doing at all times. If the fuel is running low, then you know you won't be able to do any wide open throttle until you figure out why the pressure is low. Otherwise, you go kaboom.
Oh! Big explosion!
Now for the wiring, a little bit more wiring than I anticipated. But right here is where I drilled the hole through the firewall. And the hole ended up being a lot larger than I wanted it to, and I barely cleared that connector, which is kind of why I was worrying about. My eyes ain't that great, but I got it done. All good. And here's a quick shot of the wiring, or you can see the wires coming through the firewall. I know it doesn't look pretty, but when it's all said and done, you won't even notice. And here we have the sensor installed, the fuel pressure sensor installed. And you know, the elbow, I had to lift that plenum up out of the way because I couldn't screw the elbow on. It was just hitting the plenum. So some of the issues that I had to deal with putting this adapter on and the fuel pressure sensor, but it would have been a smooth process if the plenum wasn't in the way. But that's just the stuff that you got to deal with when it comes to these Corvettes. Let's move on. We interrupt this program for a brief here because I'm pretty excited. A while back I had to farm out my transmission. I really didn't have the time to work on it. Reason being is I ended up cracking the housing on it, and I had to gut it and take it in and get it welded. So it is back. It was already welded. I thought I was going to put it together, but with the supercharger project, I just really didn't have the time to work on the transmission. So hey, let's take a look and see what it looks like. I'm happy it's done. And there you have it, guys. Man, I'm sure glad to see this back. This is the old transmission that I had in the car originally. After the housing cracked on me, the only really way to fix that is to gut everything. So that's what I did. I gutted it all out and took it down to the welder. He had to be able to get in there to fill in that crack. There in the bottom of the transmission, and you can see there's a nice bead weld there, and it's also welded on the inside of the transmission as well. So the issue is corrected. Now this is going to go back in the Corvette at some point this year. I have in there now is an eBay one, but that didn't work out for me. Unfortunately, the third gear had a rattle going on in it, so all the other gears are fine except for that third gear. And I'll probably, once that's pulled out, I'll go ahead and I'll do a fresh rebuild on it, and then I'll sell it or keep it. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to end up doing with that transmission. So here we got the A-pillar, and I need to drill a hole through that A-pillar. I hate just screwing up my OEM shit. And the reason I'm drilling a hole through the pillar is I got to be able to run the wiring through the pillar, which ultimately end up in the pod, gauge pod, to hook up to the gauges that are going to be I'm going to be using for this project. Moving forward with the boost pressure sensor, I decided to double-sided tape on the firewall. I didn't really want to permanently mount it because it's fiberglass, and I have a habit of stripping shit, so double-sided tape was my best option. Now that I got the area cleaned up, the double-sided tape is on the sensor mount. I'll just go ahead and fix it to the firewall. Now the double-sided tape I put on there, it's pretty goddamn strong, so I'm not going to have to worry about it coming off. As you can see, it's pretty sturdy. It's not going to come off. So now the only thing left is to go ahead and run the boost hose, and I'm zip tying it all. I ran it behind a distributor, and then it's coming out from the passenger side and be installed on a one of the ports that I have coming out of the intake. I do want to mention that GlowShift did provide a filter to run between the intake and the boost sensor. More than likely it's to prevent water, if by chance that it does happen, from getting into the boost sensor and damaging it. The only thing left now is just to attach the boost vacuum line to the vacuum line fitting, which will be plugging into one of the ports or vacuum ports off of the plenum, and I only have 2 on the plenum. And they're housing a lot of vacuum lines. You figure the boost vacuum line has to be plugged into it. The fuel pressure regulator vacuum line needs to be plugged into it. The fuel management unit needs to be plugged into it. The bypass valve or the surge protector vacuum line needs to be plugged into it. MSD vacuum line, I mean, I could really use more ports. Then you got your regular basic vacuum lines from the car itself. So there's a lot going on here. But according to the instructions and all the units that I installed, it said you can piggyback off a vacuum line. So we'll just leave it at that and hope for the best. Now, with all that being said, there's the final results there. As you can see, it's a bloody mess. So I'm going to figure something out at a later date. There's other options out there, but for right now, this is about as good as it's going to get. Moving on to the wideband. Now, what's a wideband? Well, the wideband, it measures your air-fuel radius, and that's real important to know for tuning and to make sure that you're not running lean. The atmospheric radius, it's 14.7 on a gasoline motor, and that's standard all across the board for a gas motor. Now, when the numbers are lower, you're leaning towards the rich side of the fuel. And of course, when the numbers are higher, then you're leaning toward the lean side of the fuel. And the lean side at wide open throttle is not where you want to be with a supercharger, otherwise you'll have catastrophic failure. You want to keep it nice and rich. So that's the goal. The goal actually is between 11 and 12.1 at wide open throttle. Now, this did come with a sensor, which is what's telling the gauge where you're at what level, what radius. The sensor actually goes in the exhaust. You drill a hole in the exhaust, and then you either weld the bun to it, or you can always go with the clamp-on-bung, which I did originally, and it failed on me because the exhaust was not as round as it should have been. It's just the area that I put it in. My bad. Anyway, I ended up welding a bun to it. But anyway, it comes with a gauge, and it also comes with a module. Now, the module actually basically plugs into your gauge, and also your wideband sensor plugs into the module. It all comes together. The kit's complete. I'm pretty satisfied with what GlowShift has to offer so far. Now, the clamp-on-bung, it's pretty straightforward. You drill a hole into your exhaust, and once you've completed that, you just put the clamp on and then tighten it down. Now, if you notice, there's a slight curb right before that bun, and that's what kind of fucked me because of that curve. Now, the instructions said you should be at least within 18 inches or no more than 18 inches. So I followed the instructions. This is where it landed me. And what ended up happening is the gasket that goes underneath the bun failed on me. So go figure. It is what it is. But we fixed that, and we welded a bun to it. Of course, in order to weld the bun, we'd have to remove the Y pipe, and I can't tell you how much of a pain in the ass that was. I tried to avoid it at all costs, but in the end, I had to do it the right way. So here's the gasket that was underneath the clamp-on-bung, and you could see why it failed there. If that pipe was truly round, I wouldn't have had that issue. And there you go. The bun is now welded to the exhaust. And as you can see where my finger's at, there's that crease, and that's what pretty much fucked that clamp-on-bung. So now with the Y pipe installed, it's time to start putting all of it together. So this gives you an idea where I ended up putting the wideband module. It's out of the way. I velcroed it on, and I also wanted to keep it accessible within reach. So now that we got all the wiring together, we can go ahead and group them wires up and get ready to install the A-pillar. Now, as you recall, I did drill a hole into the A-pillar, and it was a good size hole, and now you can see why. So running the wiring through the pillar, it was a little bit of a challenge because a couple of those connector heads were kind of thick. I thought I was going to have to do some more drilling, but I kind of forced it in. So now we just go ahead and button down the A-pillar. So now we get down to the final hole. Everything looks good at this point. I'm pretty happy. So at this point, the A-pillar's in. I'm going to wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol because I decided to use double-sided tape to install the pillar. I really don't want to drill any holes into that plastic because I don't want it to crack. At this point, we're ready to install the A-pillar gauge pod. Once a suitable spot was determined, I went ahead and used masking tape to mark my spot because I still have to apply double-sided tape to the pillar gauge pod, and I want to make sure that it was going to go back in the same place. Now that the double-sided tape has been applied to the gauge pod, A-pillar gauge pod, it's time to go ahead and run the wirings to the bottom gauge, which is going to be the boost pressure and fuel pressure gauge, and then of course the one wire through the top gauge, which is going to be the wideband. So now that we got the wiring correct, we'll go ahead and attach the gauge pod to the A-pillar, let it cure for about 24 hours, it has a solid seal, and be done with it. And then we'll be ready to install the gauges. So next we're looking at installing our first gauge, and that was going to be the wideband. Oh, did I change my mind? No, that's right. Make sure I had the wideband gauge. So the only thing left is go ahead and finish installing the bottom gauge, and that should pretty much wrap up this part of it. Basically all the wiring is hooked up. Boost and fuel pressure gauges are hooked up inside the car to the appropriate sensors. The wideband gauge that hooks up to the module, which is inside the car. I did show you a clip on it earlier. That was the recommendation from GlowShift to actually install the module inside the car rather than outside. At this point, it's all coming together. Next thing is to turn the key and see if it all works. Well, if you made it this far, congratulations. You're almost at the end of the video, and I'm almost at the end of this gauge install. So now that we got everything all buttoned up, it's time to turn the key and see if everything lights up like it's supposed to. So let's go ahead and do that. As you can see, the gauges are installed, we're mounted up, and basically we need to just turn the key and see if it all comes together. Oh, let's go ahead and do that. And there you go, guys. We have some working gauges. I'm pretty thrilled. Now, I mentioned earlier the boost pressure is on top and the fuel pressure is on the bottom. The reason why I went with the GlowShift because of the color coordination that I can personally personalize myself. The wideband is up here, and that's the wideband is real important because that you monitor your air fuel ratios. And you need to have this in order to monitor what's going on with the engine. When you go into boost, you need to know if you're into boost or not, and at the same time you're watching the pressure. That's why I kind of went with the boost and fuel pressure together, because the boost is on top and the fuel pressure is on the bottom. I can monitor those two a lot easier because I'll know when I go into boost, and then I'll know what the fuel pressure is. And of course you want to be running on the rich side at wide open throttle. So there you have it, guys. I'm pretty jazzed. It's pretty cool. All right, guys, there you have it. This install is pretty much done. We've downloaded some diagnostic software for the OBD1 system. It's old school stuff, but we need to know the parameters of what the car is doing while we're in wide open throttle with the with the supercharger. Very important. All this starts coming together now. We're going to do some road testing, see where we're at, and once we're done with that, we're going to take it over to the dyno and get a better tune on it. I don't know how much better because I'm pretty good at this shit when it comes to like with carburetors. I was an ace on adjusting carburetors. This is kind of in the same sense, except you got fuel injection, and that's why I downloaded the diagnostic software, because it allowed me to read all the parameters that I need to know in order to run the supercharger. So, with that being said, hey, thank you for following along, and thank you for subscribing, and thank you for liking, all the above, and we'll catch you on another episode of Corvette's Garage.